Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Alexander Ilchuk, and on behalf of the coordination group of 2025 initiative, Preparing the Way, I welcome you to our webinar. In this day of Sagittarius Solar Festival, we come together from different parts of the world in the service to humanity. And let's have a short alignment together. We focus on our soul. And we visualize our gathering today as a circle of souls linked together through space with love, light, and will to good. We visualize the group heart center, and we align it with the heart center of the new group of world servers. We align with the triangle of humanity, hierarchy, Shambhala. And we open up to the energy streaming from the sign of Sagittarius. And we refocus back in the group heart center, and we begin our meeting. Our meeting will be structured as a first segment will be presentation of our guests, Laurence Newey and Mintze van der Velde. Then this second segment we will open for sharings and questions from the audience, and the last will be from there will be meditation. So I want to present our dear guests, Laurence Newey and Mintze van der Velde. representing the Lucis Trust headquarters group. Thank you for accepting our invitation and willingness to share with us on this very interesting topic. Hello.
Hello there.
Hello, Sasha, everybody.
So the floor is yours, and I'm passing you the microphone.
Well, thanks very much, Sasha. It's lovely to join you all and to address a topic that's very close to Mintze and my heart on the electrical nature of the universe. I think the first and obvious starting place is to ask ourselves why this is important and what are the implications. A lot of people say, okay, so there's electricity in space. Okay, good. So what? The point we need to get across is that currently standard cosmology, which includes Big Bang, expanding universe, black holes, dark matter, dark energy, nuclear suns, basically everything we know in standard cosmology is based on the theory of a gravity-only model. So it deals with general relativity and the warping of space-time, but it doesn't account whatsoever for electricity, which, as far as astrophysics is concerned, doesn't exist to any major degree in space. And because electricity is billions and billions of times more powerful than gravity, it's quite obvious that were it to be acknowledged in space, for which there is more and more evidence, it would undermine the current theory of a gravity-only model. And that's why it's so exciting, because standard cosmology basically is a symbol of the era of separateness, of the old Newtonian mechanics, whereas electricity is all about life and interconnectedness, and therefore a fitting symbol for the electrical age of Aquarius. What do you think, Mintze?
Yes, you are quite right. You started by asking what would it mean if we were to realize the electric buildup of the universe instead of a gravitational buildup. I think it will make a lot of a difference, because we all know that we are pulled to the earth by gravity, but that doesn't connect us immediately. We will go later on in some details about electricity on all scales. We have a slide on that where we see electricity working out on different levels. Gravity is, as you said, only a very small and very weak force. It is a force, it is there, we won't deny it, but it doesn't tell the whole story, whereas current cosmology tries to claim that gravity is the whole story. Now, that is a difficult thing to get this message across, because what we call mainstream science is not only an intellectual enterprise, it has also become an industrial enterprise, and there are huge interest involved in that. So it is not so easy to change what is with a modern word called a paradigm shift. To make such a shift needs a huge effort. So maybe you can put on the next slide, Laurence. Just to give a very short structure to the point we want to make. Of course, there's one side why we are discussing all this within this group. Most of us will know some of the names on this slide, and there are many others. And they claim in a certain way already that the universe is built up or is structured around and with electricity. I think we can, unless you have other comments on this slide, Laurence?
No, move on, shall we?
Yes, we can go on. So, what is, from the esoteric point of view, what are the thoughts with respect to the cosmology or with respect to science? First, and that's a quote from Alice Bailey, time and space are states of awareness. Well, time, we all know that it is a state of awareness, because sometimes we don't have time, or sometimes a day is just too long and it's boring, and we are just waiting to the end. Space is a little bit more difficult, but you can think of it as aggregates of different sizes, molecules, organisms, organs, human beings, planets, galaxies, and the whole universe. And in that way, you can get an impression why space is also a state of awareness. Then the esoteric, or the old wisdom, teaches us that everything is electric in nature. This is too a quote from Alice Bailey. And this goes very, very far. We will see later on what we find on the physical plane. Of course, this is true also on the more subtle planes, but we are here more focusing on cosmology. And another line which we will just give as an input or to think about: life itself is electricity, which is, just to say the least, a mystery, but which gives a lot of thought for pondering upon. Electricity produces cohesion within all forms. That's also important, which is not recognized by mainstream science. I already told you, mainstream science takes still gravity as the major force, although in biology and in medicine, many, if not all, of the processes are or contain a very big electric component. And then electricity sustains form life during manifested existence. So that's again electricity, which is the driving force to sustain the forms in manifestation. These are just some starters, and we can in the question section go into more details of these thoughts. Do you have any comments, Laurence, on these?
Well, first of all, the question might be asked is, we have some very clever scientists around. Why don't they acknowledge the fact that electricity is at work in the universe? And the reason for this really is, if we go way back to Kepler and Galileo's time and on to Newton, all they had for their means for studying the universe was telescopes, basic telescopes. And so it was just an optical observation. And as well as that, the solar system seems very peaceful. The orbits of the planets continue around the sun. And this is because the system is electrically neutral. Electricity, the positive and the minus poles of electricity, are always seeking equilibrium. And when they find it, then neutrality supervenes, and with it the force of gravity can then take over. So at the moment we are in a solar system that is electrically more or less neutral. There are electrical things occurring within it, but it allows the force of gravity to rule. But when recent space telescopes have been sent up that see in the radio frequencies, ultraviolet, infrared, we're starting to see that there is a lot more to the story than just the small visual part of the spectrum. There's all sorts of electrical manifestations out there that can only really be described in electrical terminology. But because the pattern has been for hundreds of years of a gravity-only model, the mathematics of that describe this mechanical system has become ingrained and overpowering thought form in science, and it takes a lot to shift that paradigm because there is so much at stake. It would mean a completely revolutionary and new way of looking at the universe. On top of this, it was only in Faraday's time that electricity was discovered, and then Maxwell came on to bring us the laws that linked magnetism and electricity, and we saw how they worked together. But it was never really then taken on as being a way of being integrated into our understanding of the universe. And finally, on top of that, we also lost the ether, which, as you know, the Ageless Wisdom believes very much in. With Einstein's theory of relativity in the early 20th century, as predicted by Helena Blavatsky, the ether was dispensed with. It was looked upon as no longer necessary, and Einstein's theories of general relativity and the concept of space-time came in. So essentially there was no need for this ether, and with that a whole lot of complications entered the picture. And Helena Blavatsky's forecast was that when the ether was dispensed with, science would find itself in all sorts of trouble for a long time to come. That's proved to be the case because astrophysicists are constantly scratching their heads every time new information comes in that doesn't fit in with the standard model. But because you can accommodate anything with the right kind of mathematics, they work with their mathematical equations until they can explain and add something onto the current theory. Hence we get all the idea of dark energy and dark matter and black holes and so forth. Would you like to pick up, Mintze?
Yes, just a couple of remarks. You quite rightly point out that we started all of this by looking at the sky, which is already a magnificent experience. If you look at a starry sky on a clear night, you can see the AU of it and the magnificent. We didn't have very much, we didn't have very many tools until about maybe a century or half a century ago. But when I did my self-study astronomy at the university, that's about 40 years ago, the picture of the universe was quite, well, I can't say dull, but it was quite limited. At that time, people thought that the universe was not much bigger than our own galaxy. And why was that so? One of the things was that an astronomer called Hubble, he at a certain time proposed that if stars are moving away from us, their light is slightly shifted in color. That's what they call the redshift. It's something the same like if a train comes towards you, the pitch of the sound of the train changes. Then when it goes away from you, with light this is the same thing, and if an object is coming to you, it is more or less blue, and if it is going away, it's more or less red. Now, Hubble proposed that this could probably explain the expansion of the universe, but he himself was quite cautious with that. He said it may be an option, but it doesn't necessarily explain all of the expansion of the universe. Unfortunately, nobody listened to him except for his statement that the redshift would be related to an expansion of the universe. but nobody took into account his cautiousness, his precautions, that is maybe not the whole story. So nowadays, each astronomer simply takes what is called the Hubble relation, or the law, the Hubble, the redshift of Hubble, as something solid and proven and taken for granted. To such an extent that if this is another astronomer, which is called Alton Harp, he has discovered a set of objects in the sky which are optically related, but which have a different redshift in parts of it. That means you can have a rather relatively big blob with a redshift of some value, connected to it another part with another redshift, and this is theoretically not possible. If an object is connected, it should have one redshift and not two. Whereas Helton RP has made a whole catalog of these kind of objects, which is a big problem. Laurence already said that astronomers are used to encountering big problems. So how did astronomy solve this problem? Well, they didn't. They simply prohibited Helton Arp to look further to the sky. They didn't give him any more time to the telescopes, and he is now in Germany lecturing at the university, but he has no access to telescopes to do more of this kind of research. Of course, this is not the most elegant way to solve a problem. You already mentioned dark matter and dark energy. These are not just concepts which are small things. Dark matter was invented because we know that galaxies rotate, and to describe the way galaxies rotate, we needed dark matter, because otherwise the equations of Einstein simply don't fit the data. But we don't know what dark matter is. It's something which we put in the equation to get the observations right, but we don't know what it is. And then you also mentioned dark energy. That's something for which in 2011 the Nobel Prize was attributed. Dark energy is invented because we know that at the edge, if there is an edge of the universe, instead of expanding slower, it expands faster. Now, if you have a Big Bang, supposedly that there was a Big Bang, you would expect that in the end the edges would expand slower instead of faster. But do the observations show us, and these are just observations of the last couple of decades, they show that the universe is expanding faster. So again, we invented a concept which we simply don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is, and it is a big problem. Why is it a big problem? Well, in this concept of the Big Bang theory, only 4% of the whole of creation is made of matter like you and me. And 96% is either dark matter or dark energy. So once again, only 4% is made of material like you and me, and the rest is something which we have invented to fit our equations, but we don't know what it is. Well, from that point of view, and this is a big scientific problem, you really may ask, are we on the right track if 96% of the universe is consisting of something of what we have no idea? We can't prove it, we can't find it in the laboratory, we can't touch it, we can't see it. So this is a really big problem. Laurence, you have any ideas on this?
Yes, another phenomenon that everybody is very much interested in at the moment is black holes, of course. And this again came about because it was discovered that there were tremendous bursts of energy coming out in deep space. And again, there was no mechanism to explain this other than the very weak force of gravity. And because this energy was so immense, there had to be a tremendous compression of matter in order to provide the needed energy to account for it, infinitely so. But the whole problem actually comes down to the fact that it wasn't realized so long ago that in fact the matter of the universe, 99.9% of all the matter that we know of in the universe, not going into the dark matter theory, all the known matter is in a state of plasma. It's a dusty plasma. What this actually means, and it is acknowledged by standard cosmology, that all the matter has within it a certain percentage where the electrons or the protons are dissociated from the atoms. So there's a certain amount of free electric charge, which is a very good conductor of electricity. So now if we bring in the idea of electric currents passing through this plasma in space, we can actually account for everything that we see, the spin of galaxies, etc., the way the sun works, all from an electrical perspective in a much more sane and sensible manner than relying on the infinitely weak force of gravity only. But it's the fact that astronomers and astrophysicists don't work very much with the electrical sciences and don't know very much about, for instance, the Birkeland currents, which we can go on to discuss a little later. It's only now that there are electrical engineers and people in the electrical sciences who are starting to see what's coming in from all these telescopes, these orbiting telescopes, and they're realizing that it's very similar to scaled down versions of this phenomena that they can reproduce quite easily on an everyday basis in their laboratories. So it's a question of bringing back the theoretical mathematical side of science, which just gives us theories that are non-testifiable, and actually having something that's much simpler that can actually be demonstrated in the laboratory on a much smaller and scaled down version. Then by bringing in the scientific more of Occam's razor, whereby you always go for the simplest explanation of two theories, the electrical one is much simpler and it makes a lot more sense, and for us, particularly so as it fits in with the Ageless Wisdom doctrine.
May I make a comment on this?
Sure.
I like your statement that it is much simpler, but I'm also a theorist from my training, and it is true that the equations of Einstein and gravity, you can put that in a theory which is relatively simple. That's why most of the cosmologists of today adhere to that. However, if you take a plasma, then the theorists are on the defense, because the theory of plasma is extremely complicated. It is so complicated that actually all a plasma does is exactly what you don't want it to do, and all what you predict it should do, it doesn't. That's also why you probably know that people are already searching for nuclear fusion, not fission, because fission, the atom bomb and things like that, we more or less know how that works. But fusion is another story, and already for several decades we are trying to search for controlled nuclear fusion, which is also related to plasma phenomena, and we simply can't get it because the theory is so complicated. I agree with you that the experiments are quite clear. And from that point of view, if you take the experiments we can do in the laboratory, plus the fact that electricity is hugely scalable, that means that if you do an experiment on the scale of your laboratory, you can find similar phenomena on a huge scale, which are exactly the same from an electrical point of view, but only on a much bigger scale. Now, what is a plasma exactly? A plasma is just a gaseous state, like a gas, and it is only not completely neutral. It has a little charge added to that. But also keep in mind, and this is where we get a connection with the Ageless Wisdom, a plasma is never static. It's always dynamic. It's always in motion. It's almost like a process. At the same time, we do have three modes of plasma. There is what we call the dark mode. That is a mode where we don't see the plasma, although it is there. Most of the plasma is in that mode. Then we have what we call a glowing mode. You can see that if you take a tube, a neon tube, that's filled with plasma. If you apply no electricity, it is in what we call the dark mode. If you apply the electricity, then we get it in the glowing mode, and that's where we see the plasma glowing. And then the third mode, that's where we have the bolts and the
It seems that we're experiencing some problems with the audio.
Do you still
Laurence?
hear me? Yes, you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm waving to Mintze to try and let him know, but he seems to be enjoying what he's doing. Let's see if you can.
So maybe you can pick up the torch from him.
Yes, because we're coming to the end of the presentation as such and going more into question time. But yes, from what Mintze was saying, yes, from a scientist's point of view, if you're trying to find a unified theory for the universe, then describing the behavior of plasma is almost impossible because, well, it's much closer to life. If you think of physical particles, atoms in a reductionist sense, as physics does at the moment, then they're going to obey certain laws, at least on the macrocosmic scale, not going down to quantum levels. And mathematically that can be addressed, but plasma is so lifelike, because it is life, that you can't predict its behavior. But nevertheless, for the person in the street to describe the universe in terms of electricity, the concepts are much easier. You can explain the spin of a galaxy comparing it to a Faraday motor. You can explain the sun as being a transistor in a circuit that it explains, for instance, the puzzle that science has at the moment, that the sun's surface is around 6,000 degrees Kelvin, but as you get further away from the sun to its corona, it's actually much hotter, millions of degrees. You can't explain that satisfactorily. It makes no sense. It's like the further you move away from a stove, the hotter it gets. But electricity describes this as the stars all being connected in the galaxies. Electric currents are flowing into the sun, so the sun's corona is the first part of it that it would contact and stimulate. And it goes on. It's a simpler way of looking at the universe, but it does open up a lot more questions again. You can't tell the age of stars, etc. And there are many other mysteries that remain for us to tackle in another way. I think that's probably about enough from me. Should we see if we can get back in touch with Mintze?
I am back again. Yes, probably somewhere. I don't know where the connection broke, but the internet connection. No, I'm not there.
It was just after the light example you were giving with the plasma in the tube.
Okay, well that was almost where I wanted to stop anyway for Laurence. Laurence, can you put on the slide with all the phenomena? You can skip the other slides.
And there was a question from the audience asking what was this third mode of plasma? That's where you was interrupted.
Oh, the third mode of plasma is the thunderbolts, the lightning, which we see when there is a lightning or thunderbolts.
It's known as
That's the
arc
third
mode.
mode. You can see it here in this picture. For example, you see in the. Am I online? I don't think so. Do you
I
hear
think
me?
so. I
Yes.
can hear you, Mintze.
Oh,
Yes.
Can hear you.
Okay. You see in the upper row, you see all kinds of. These are on a, of course, on a galactic scale, on a very large scale. For example, in the middle picture, you see the Crab Nebula, and these are typically plasma phenomena. What I didn't say yet of a plasma is that it has a tendency to create cells, a cellular structure, and you can see beautiful examples in the upper row, in the middle picture, and the second picture. You see these cell structures displayed, and of course, with gravity, it's extremely difficult to explain these kind of structures. We see also on the solar system the explosion of the sun in the heliosphere. On the right, we see what are called elves. These are just electric phenomena, a little bit beyond the atmosphere of the Earth. And on Earth itself, we see the lightning. You see the Eiffel Tower. We see an eruption of a volcano at the bottom right, where normally people don't realize that, but with almost all volcanic eruptions, also lightning is involved, which is a plasma and an electric phenomenon, which raises the question, are these volcanic eruptions itself not an expression of an electric phenomenon? And then on the bottom line, we see the microcosm and life, and that could be the subject of another full seminar. Just to summarize, water, the latest discoveries of water are very promising, because you can see it is a small picture in the middle on the bottom. At the surface of water, water isn't simply bulk water from the tap. At the surface, water is more like a liquid crystal, which has an electric charge. And this electric charge, if there is an electric charge, you need some energy or some input to maintain that electric charge. And one of the most recent investigations to explain these electric phenomena at the surface of water imply that this electric charge at the surface is maintained by the input from light, from the sun. So from the very small to the very, very big, you can see electricity working all over the place. But again, the theoretical equations are quite difficult to solve. We know the equations themselves. These are the Maxwell equations discovered 2 centuries ago by Maxwell. But to solve this and to do the calculations, that's much, much more difficult. And that is one of the reasons why the electric universe is so unpopular among theorists. It is, however, a much more elegant and a much more useful way of explaining the cosmology, because all these things like black holes, dark matter, dark energy are completely inexistent from an electrical point of view.
Thank you, Mintze. Thank you, Laurence. I suggest now we open the floor to the comments from the audience and questions. And for, as probably you understand, for technical reasons, everyone is muted in the audience now. There's 72 of us. And so, but if you want to share, please use the function raise your hand function. It's on your control panel. Or you can just put your question in the chat. But it would be great to hear your voice, so please raise your hand, or if you can't locate that function, just please write in the questions, I want to talk, and please unmute me. So I want to pose the first question, if I would be allowed. So where does that bring us all? Like, why, with all those evidence, the traditional science still doesn't accept the electric theory, and why is it so, seems to be rebellion for traditional scientists? What could change in the science, and not just in the science, but in the world, if this theory would be accepted?
Well, I can make one observation, if I may. Scientists like to study things out there. They like to study things in a laboratory. It should be, as you know, it should be repetitive. You should do double-blind experience and things like that. However, if we take an electric approach, then the scientist himself, him or herself, gets involved too. He gets part of the picture, and that's one of the things scientists don't really like. They like to study things out of themselves, but they don't like to get involved. Because one of the consequences, if you take an electrical point of view, then everything, including the scientist as a human being, is connected with all the other things. I think this is maybe a hidden reason why there is so much resistance, but there is also a lot of resistance to do research in the fields of telepathy, of consciousness studies, although there are studies going on, but mainstream still doesn't like that. And behind that is, if you go into this, then you as a scientist get involved not only as a scientist but also as a human being.
I think to add to that, wherever there's a mass thought form that's accumulated not just over years but over centuries, the pride of the intellect gets identified with that, and thought forms, powerful thought forms, have to be shattered. They crystallize, then they shatter. And that's, I think, what we're seeing at the moment as a symbol of the separative way of thinking, the separative mind. I don't believe humanity was ready to take on an electrical universe concept or paradigm with what that would symbolize. But this time is exciting because as all the information keeps pouring in from these orbiting observatories and telescopes, at some point there is going to have to be this paradigm shift, and I think that will happen naturally as we're moving into Aquarius, and the idea of us all being electrically connected to one another will make a lot more sense, and that will help break down the thoughtful esoterically of what exists at the moment. I think it's fair to say that currently theoretical physics and science is very much an exercise of the abstract mind, as is Einsteinian science. It's still lacking the more intuitive side, which we brought about through an understanding of the science of electricity and the way that it interconnects us all.
There is a couple raised hands. I will unmute now Jonathan. And I also invite people to share their impressions on these questions that we all together discuss, not just posing your own questions. Hi, Jonathan.
Oh, hello. Good evening. Thanks, Laurence and Mintze, for a really excellent presentation. I've touched upon electricity briefly. It's a fascinating subject. I think you've summed up eloquently the work of Wallace Thornhill and his colleagues relating to the electric universe, especially the cosmic physical plane. aspect. What I'd like to ask is if you have any comments in relation to a thought that was shared by the philosopher scientist Walter Russell, who spoke about the electric mind of the universe. And I found it very helpful for me to understand and relate to the universe at its many levels when we consider the idea that thought itself is electric.
Certainly that's the case. You can work with the concept of Bohat, as we would call it, the agent of Brahma from the esoteric point of view, and you can very clearly describe on all the various levels of the cosmic physical plane the way that Bohat manifests itself. If we were just to take the picture that we still have in front of us at the top right, we have what's known as a Birkeland current, and you can see the twisted filament of that, and underneath it the image that is really a helix, a double helix, which we're all very familiar with in terms of DNA, of the caduceus, rising kundalini, etc. Now the Birkeland current you could actually look upon as the way that a cosmic idea from the electrical consciousness or mind of a god is transferring itself down onto the physical plane. It's coming down through the etheric levels and then into the gaseous, into the plasmic state, where it's starting to twist and take on the shape of the love wisdom building ray, which, as we know, is spiraling cyclical. If you look at the helix, you couldn't ask for a better description of the building ray of the solar system, love wisdom. And there you see a cosmic idea from a cosmic mind coming down, electrically squeezes at a point of tension all the matter that's found within it. And from that it isolates them according to electrical potential, and from that it suggested how the suns and galaxies are formed. So yes, everything's electrical, from the electrical thinker himself right down to the phenomenon that he produces. Do you want to add anything to that, Mintze?
No, just let's give them space for another question, if there are.
Yeah, there was a question from Maria Cristina Donadieu. Maria Cristina, hi.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
I have a question. I'm just wondering if you're familiar with, I guess it would be a newly discovered mathematical object that is, I just kind of went blank. I'm sorry. But it's the amplituhedron, which is described as a jewel-like geometric object that could put together, could give some sort of seamless connect between the laws of gravity and all of these new laws or the quantum scale, or all of these nonsense black holes that come up. And it's supposed to be more of a geometric computation, like rather than one term, instead of lots of long, thousands of terms long, to compute things, it yields a one-term expression. It's described as jewel-like, and it's a geometric construct called an amplituhedron. I could describe it a little bit more, but maybe that's enough if you've heard of it.
I think it's enough. Mintze can probably answer this one.
Well, to be frank, I haven't heard of it, so it's more difficult to give a comment on.
What I'd like to just add, though, is that, as we were saying earlier, you can always create something mathematically to describe something. It just becomes more complicated. But all we have to ask ourselves as esotericists is the simple question: do we believe in the Ageless Wisdom teachings in the concept of Fohat and cosmic electricity. If we do, then cosmology is wrong, standard cosmology. But if we accept the current model, then the Ageless Wisdom teachings are wrong. It's as simple as that, really.
Well, I think it is not that black and white.
Go ahead.
Yes? No, go ahead.
Well, this just seemed to take it didn't seem to negate anything that was being said. It was just talking about the possibility of being described jewel-like, of the geometric, more of a mantram rather than language and words. So that seemed like a simplification without negating above and beyond the plasma theory, that it could exist within that. So, yes, that's all.
Well, what we haven't covered, of course, is the geometry of the universe, which would make another seminar. But to add to the electrical concept of the universe, we also need to move into sacred geometry and the fractal nature of the universe as well. But that's for another time, and that does, of course, include all sorts of geometry, of divine geometry.
There are plenty of questions coming from the audience. I don't think we will be able to cover all of them, so it's difficult to decide where to start. Like, first one, great talk. It's from actually from Linda Myers. Great talk. What about magnetic energy? Does that relate to this? Is it related to plasma?
Oh yes, definitely. Magnetic energy is all over the place. That is even acknowledged by current cosmology. However, and this is pure physics, each magnetic phenomenon is originated by electric currents, which many people, including cosmologists, often forget. People talk about magnetic fields and magnetic interactions, but in the concept and the physical laws as we know them today, every magnetic phenomenon, any magnetic field is created and sustained by electric currents. So they really do form part, and a major part of all this. If you, Laurence was talking about the Birkeland currents, which you see in the upper, for example, in the upper right part of the slide, which is still online. This is not only an electric current, it is an electromagnetic current, so there is a magnetic part in it, which makes that it is like 2 or 3 ropes which are spiraling together, but they don't touch, they are not trapped together. And that's exactly the magnetic force, because also keep in mind that the electric force can attract and repel. Gravitation cannot do that. So to keep these, to explain these Birkeland currents, both are involved, electricity and magnetism.
Just to add to that, you might wonder why astrophysicists don't acknowledge the fact that if there's magnetic energy out there, which they do, where's the electric current driving them? And the reason for that is that there came a very fairly complex theoretical science called magnetohydrodynamics, which talks about frozen in magnetic fields that don't have to have associated electrical currents, as far as I understand. But the person who worked in this field and came up with the theory, Hannes Alfvén, a Nobel Prize winner, also came back later to say he'd got it wrong, and in actual fact we live in an electric universe. He is one of the big names in electrical plasma cosmology, and ironically he's the one who gave the gravitational model its excuse for not accepting electrical currents in the first place.
I will try to combine questions, because there are some similar questions. question from Mary Kurtzsmith. What is the immediate esoteric value of the knowledge provided here about electricity? How do we integrate it into the spiritual microcosmic life? And the same question comes from Riza D'Angelis. How would our lives be different if we embrace this electrical universe?
I think immediately you could say science acknowledges the fact that man, the human being, is electrical in nature. The brain's electrical, and the connection between the brain, consciousness, and everything outside of it is an electrical one. As soon as that connection is made, everything becomes demystified, whether we're talking about telepathy, astrology. We can all start working and talking in electrical terms, and the connection between everything starts to become more apparent. I'll leave it there, Mintze. I think you need a stab at that one too.
Yes, no, agree. The basic thing of electricity is that it connects all of us, and I think Alice Bailey already quoted somewhere that the scientist will eventually prove the existence of brotherhood, and I think this is not yet the case, but electricity is certainly an integral part on that road to that the proof of that brotherhood.
Interesting that in
I
modern
think also, if we look at...
Sorry, go ahead, Laurence.
Go on. No, please.
Yeah, I wanted to say that in modern political discourse, the concept of interconnectedness becomes more and more potent, and that's become the language which shows interdependence of all people and all the nations and politics in any particular country, how it's related to any other. So it's very electrical. The brotherhood is really, really electrical, and it's come through this interconnectedness and interdependence.
Exactly.
There is another question from Monica Bebel. She asks, would you say that also the soul is an electric being? Because it is said that the soul is the cohesion of the form. And would you say the electric body is a body of plasma?
I'm not quite sure I'm with that totally. What was being said? Do we believe that there is an electric body? Is that what we're saying, of an organism? Are we talking an intermediary between the physical body and the etheric body?
Yeah, the question about if the soul can be seen as an electric being.
Yes, I think absolutely. I mean, if you read just from Blavatsky and Bailey's take on the Ageless Wisdom, everything is electrical beings. Fohat, Brahma is electricity. Fohat being the agent of Brahma is electricity in motion, and it's the seven sons of Brahma stride through the heavens, creating everything around us. Everything is electrical. That includes the beings itself, and of course the concept of initiation, the wielding of the rod of initiation. It's the way electrical beings channel their energies through the rod to create particular changes and transmutations. The causal body of the soul can certainly be described in electrical terms of brilliance and voltage. Yes, it permeates all of the Ageless Wisdom teachings.
Just one remark that most of the science which we are discussing here is related to one part of electricity, which is fire by friction. And of course we all know that there is also solar fire and cosmic fire, which are also part of electricity. And once we go to the plane, or once we discuss concepts like the soul, I think we should extend the concept of electricity to the other planes.
There was raised hand by Monica who put that question ahead. Monica, did you wanted to add something?
Yes, my question was whether you would say that the etheric body, is that a body of plasma?
Ah, that's a good question. Probably yes, but then plasma itself will also have an etheric part. Let's put it in another way. I've been discussing this with several other scientists who are more open, not so narrow-minded than the mainstream. And for some, the plasma is the etheric body. But it depends from which part of the planes you come from. If you start with the dense physical plane, you could say that the plasma is the etheric body. If you start, what I would personally prefer, from the concept that consciousness is the starting point and that it's expressing itself in all kinds of forms, then the etheric plane is more an originating plane, which is expressed on the physical plane by, well, plasma, electricity, as we observe it. But this is a very subtle and profound question.
My own take on that would be that plasma is regarded as the fourth state of matter, solid, liquid, gas, and then plasma, and I see that as the crossover point to the fourth level of the etheric planes.
Agree.
There is a raised hand by Lee. Sorry, some noise. Let's try one more time. Lee? No, it doesn't work. Some sound reverberation, so maybe, Lee, you could use headphones with a microphone. But there was a question put earlier in the chat from Lee. Yes, so how can we use this knowledge in advancements of the one work? Probably that was the question she wanted to ask.
I think there's Mintze will have many ideas, but the one that we both share is that we can work in the Department of Science, Service of the Plan, maybe with the electric bridge site, where these connecting ideas between electrical science and the Ageless Wisdom teachings are put there, are up on the site, and the idea is to go in and to ponder and to reflect on these, and to pictorially sort of visualize building the bridge of understanding through the latest discoveries that haven't yet hit mainstream science, but which are on the point of revelation, and seeing them creating this bridge of communication towards the science of the initiates.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. I think we should also keep in mind that even though we do disagree with many of the scientists, in a certain sense, scientists are also part of what we would call the one work. They are pushing our understanding and our thought forms in a certain direction, although we would prefer that they go into a different direction. But as Alice Bailey tells us, the sciences the scientists are actually the occultists of today. So they do participate in it, but it is a very complex enterprise.
And I think there are leading thinkers now, particularly on the Thunderbolts site. There's great people like Wallace Thornhill and Gerald Pollack, cell biologists, and of course Rupert Sheldrake. All these people, Bruce Lipton, all their work is coming together, and I believe that the disciplines of electrical science is what will integrate and synthesize them all together. But they're all working in various fields that are connected with electrical science.
Well, we are coming to our meditation, and there is one last question which I think would help us to focus on this topic, going to meditation. It's a question from Bregi Wiesenbeek. She asked to recap briefly on how this notion of electricity relates to the all of us being connected. And so if just put in a brief few words the whole concept and what it would mean for us, and that would lead us
Okay,
to meditation.
I will just give 2-3 short thoughts on this. If everything is electric and we realize that we, even as human beings, are composed for 90% of water, but not bulk water, but this water in this electric state, then automatically, whether we want it or not, we are connected. And I think this is one of the major things. If we adopt this concept of electricity, we automatically are connected, which is just a precursor to what I just mentioned before, the brotherhood.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if you even look on the Thunderbolt site, all these scientists now who are starting to talk about electricity are also talking about how we live in an interconnected universe. We're no longer in the age where we see suns and planets spinning in isolation, but in fact that electricity and electromagnetic energy, all of which carry information, of course, which is another aspect we haven't had time to look into. But as soon as you get electromagnetic fields connecting us all together, then it also shows how thought is related as well. The fact that we can speak through mobile phones to one another on different sides of the world, we can start to talk a bit more about how we're also connected in consciousness through the whole concept of magnetic fields too. And we can start to build this bridge more towards an understanding of brotherhood in a much more scientific way.
Thank you very much, Laurence. Thank you very much, Mintze. It's a very interesting topic for all of us to focus. And this webinar has been recorded, and it will be available later on to listen and download. And in the chat window, you can see the links to the archive of all the webinars of 2025 initiative and the earlier 2012 initiative. Hopefully soon we'll launch our website where it all will be in one place, but now you can access those recordings over there following those links. And now let's all go into meditation and bring all these ideas into our group focus. Please.
Would you like me to go ahead, Sasha?
Yes, please, Laurence.
Yeah. Full moon approach to the hierarchy in Sagittarius. I see the goal, I reach that goal, and then I see another. Letting in the light. Group fusion. We affirm the fact of group fusion and integration within the heart center of the new group of world servers, mediating between hierarchy and humanity. I am one with my group brothers, and all that I have is theirs. May the love which is in my soul pour forth to them. May the strength which is in me lift and aid them. May the thoughts which my soul creates reach and encourage them. alignment. We project a line of lighted energy towards the spiritual hierarchy of the planet, and to the Christ at the heart of hierarchy. Extend the line of light towards Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known. Higher interlude. Hold the contemplative mind open to the extraplanetary energies streaming into Shambhala and radiated through hierarchy. Visualize the three planetary centers, Shambhala, hierarchy, humanity, coming into alignment and interplay. Meditation. Reflect on the seed thought. I see the goal. I reach that goal, and then I see another. Precipitation. Visualize the energies of light, love, and the will to good pouring throughout the planet, becoming anchored on Earth in prepared physical plane centers through which the plan can manifest. Visualize the sequence of energy precipitation, Shambhala, hierarchy, the Christ, a new group of world servers, men and women of goodwill everywhere in the world, physical centers of distribution. Lower interlude. Refocus the consciousness as a group within the periphery of the great ashram. In the center of all love I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. Visualize the downpouring spiritual inflow released from Shambhala through the hierarchy, streaming into humanity through the prepared channel. Consider how these inpouring energies are establishing the pathway of light for the coming world teacher, Christ. Distribution. As the great invocation is sounded, visualize the outpouring of light, love, and power from the spiritual hierarchy through the 5 planetary inlets: London, Darjeeling, New York, Geneva, Tokyo, irradiating the consciousness of the whole human race. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We keep our alignment with the energies of Sagittarius and the theme of today's webinar, and with the heart of the new group of old servers. Thank you, Laurence. Thank you, Mintze.
It's a
Unfortunately, we
pleasure to
couldn't.
talk to you all.
Unfortunately, we couldn't answer all
Yes,
the
it was a great pleasure
questions.
to talk to you all.
We hope we will have a chance to continue this topic and conversation on this topic in one of our following webinars.
Absolutely.
And let's keep our group alignment till the next solar festival in Capricorn. And we invite you to join our next webinar on January 15th with Tuija Robinson from Finland. representing Moria Federation and the Blue Rose Sisterhood. And the topic will be Eternal Life, Mysteries of Shambhala, Kalevala, and Capricorn. So let's stay connected.